I've seen a lot of companies go up, come down, be successful because of marketing. At the end of the day, I think product is king. Always. There's probably 50 to 100 of our community members who have Lokai tattoos. Lokai is definitely a brand where people have gotten very emotional about it, and I've cried reading stories. Living our own message and learning to find balance through the highs and the lows of business and separating that from personal.
Welcome to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I am your host, Eric Tash. Join us as we delve into the world of impactful business leaders who are setting the bar high. Worthy for 30 carefully curates its guests, engaging with business trailblazers who embody the ethos of doing good while doing well. In each episode, we extract actionable tips and wisdom from these visionaries, offering you a blueprint to merge success with social impact. Ready to elevate your business game? Let's dive in and learn how to do good while thriving. Worthy for 30, where purpose meets profit. Welcome to the Worthy for 30 podcast. I am your host, Eric Tash, and I am thrilled to have Steven Izen, the CEO and founder of Lokai, joining us today. First, a heartfelt thank you to our mutual friend, Corey Capasso, for the introduction, and a huge congratulations to Corey on his recent nuptials. At Lokai, Steven drew inspiration from the Hawaiian term Lokai, signifying a harmonious blend of opposites through infusing elements from Mount Everest and the Dead Sea into their products. Lokai encourages wearers to seek balance amidst the life's peaks and valleys, fostering humility in highs and hopefulness in lows. With a commitment to giving back, Lokai donates 10% of its net profits to charitable causes, having already contributed $8 million to various initiatives, which is incredible. Steven's personal journey, rooted in his grandfather's Alzheimer's diagnosis, led him to create Lokai, aiming to provide a tangible reminder for individuals to navigate life's contrasts with grace. Today, we delve into the story behind Lokai's inception, its impact, and Steven's insights as an entrepreneur. So, Steven, welcome to the show. Great for
Eric,
you to have.
thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. So can you just give us some background? I mentioned your grandfather's Alzheimer's diagnosis. What year was that? And then from there, how did what was that journey from that point to founding Lokai?
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it, but about 13 years ago, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and I was 19 at the time. And I was very close to him growing up. And so for me, that was the lowest point of my life at that time. And I was really just thinking about the highs and lows that I was going through and how everybody goes through highs and lows in life. It doesn't matter your age, demographic, income level. We all have them. And so I was thinking, and I'd always been very entrepreneurial. As a kid, I was lemonade stands. I had a custom wood pen company in high school. I was always doing stuff and coming up with ideas. And so I was like, okay, well, highs and lows. What are the highest and lowest points on Earth? Mount Everest and the Dead Sea. What if I took elements from those two places and incorporated them into a product that people could wear every day as a reminder to find balance in life, staying humble when you're on top of the world and hopeful when you've hit a low. And, I told that idea to my dad, and he said, that's a great idea, but everyone has great ideas. Now go execute it. That's the hard part. And I was kind of up for a challenge and a bit naive as a 19-year-old. And so I just took it day at a time. And I worked on Lokai for 3 years while I was in college. And then I officially launched the company in June of 2013 when I graduated. So didn't have a job after school, just jumped right into being an entrepreneur and carrying my display store to store. And trying to spread awareness for the brand.
Excellent. And you talk about your father, you mentioned execution. A great execution separates, the doers from the dreamers. You went to Cornell University. You're a student athlete, correct? I saw that you ran track.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So how did those experiences, help prepare you for entrepreneurship? Because was your major, did you major in business in college, or did you always have, again, you mentioned the lemonade stand, but you just always had in the back of your mind that you wanted to start a business upon graduation?
Yeah, I was always very entrepreneurial. I was in the business school and majored in entrepreneurship and marketing. So it was definitely a career path I knew I was going to take. And I would say being an athlete, being a student, starting a business, I think really early on taught me about time management and where to and not to spend my time and do what is important and move on to other things. So
you talk about it important again. I like this whole point of execution because they're entrepreneurs, they're founders, both the aspirational and the existing who listen to our show. What are some of the tips that you would give to both that aspirational entrepreneur and to that existing entrepreneur when it comes to executing an idea or vision?
I mean, it's kind of like the naive, the quote, but it's like people overestimate how much they can get done in a year and underestimate how much they can get done in 10 years. It is a long road being an entrepreneur. And I always say entrepreneurship is like a career. It is not a job. And so I really look long term, and what that ends up doing is makes my day to day very sustainable, right? So for me, there are rarely fires going on within the business where I'm up late at night working, right? Like I shut it down at a reasonable time, wake up the next day and start again. I think if you go too hard, like, oh, I'm going to work till 3 p.m. every single day, wake up early, start again, you're going to burn yourself out. And so I think building a sustainable plan that you can do what you do for the long run is how you really build value and success.
Yes, it's a job. It's a career. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Going towards or talking about the ethos, about the highs of life and being humble and then being hopeful in the lows. How do you practice that? How do you exude that ethos that Lokai professes through its products?
Great question. No one's actually asked me that before. Well, one of the things that's become one of the most important parts of my life and my career is I'm on the national board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So from a time standpoint, I like to give back. I find that gives me a ton of perspective of the problems and issues that I go through in my life when I see these children with critical illnesses and what they have to deal with on a daily basis. So I'd say that puts life into perspective a lot.
Gotcha. And you're on the national board of the Make-A-Wish. 10% of Lokai's net profits go to charities. What are some of the charities that money has gone to? Just to give us an idea.
We have about 20 different nonprofit organizations that we work with. Everyone from the Alzheimer's Association, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Make-A-Wish Foundation, NAMI, which is the largest mental health nonprofit organization. And then we also will give to things like the Hawaii Foundation when there was the disaster in Hawaii, or we've done an expedition on Everest where we cleaned up trash and bodies that were left on the mountain. And yeah, we'll do some kind of really cool, fun initiatives, but the majority of the donations go to our 15, 20 nonprofit partners.
And to the nonprofit leaders, again, the show, as you know, as I've given you context, is all about talking to business leaders who are doing good while doing well. So I've had some nonprofit leaders on the show. How does that nonprofit or that nonprofit leader say, hey, Steven, I'd love for you to look at my nonprofit and its mission, and perhaps we could be part of those, 15, 20, 25 nonprofits that Lokai gives some of that money to? What's that evaluation process or vetting process?
We kind of start with the cause, right? And understand what our consumers are asking for. And then we look for the charity within that cause that has the biggest impact with the dollars that we're donating, directly tied to whatever the mission is. So Breast Cancer Research Foundation was an important choice for us because 100% of our donation goes right to research. Not marketing, not employee expenses. It goes directly to research. And so, we try to look for charities that are very efficient with the dollars that we donate.
And that data, like understanding what your consumer wants. So I imagine there's a data analytics layer to the Lokai website where you're able to understand, or are you surveying the consumers who are buying your products through your website to understand what causes are near and dear to them?
Yeah, I mean, now over 10 years into the business, I think we have a pretty good handle on what causes people care about. Obviously, when there's a disaster and something comes up, we hear from our community through social media, email. I would say predominantly it's just listening through social media on what people care about. And yeah, we survey our customers as well.
Gotcha. And in terms of the products, so Lokai, you have the bracelets. What are some of the other products? If a consumer goes to the Lokai website, and again, I'm going to include a link to the Lokai website as part of publishing this episode. What other products can they find?
Yeah, so this year we just launched a totally new category for us, which is silicone rings. We believe that to find balance in life, you really have to be active as well, outdoors, make sure your health and wellness and fitness is strong. And so kind of a silicone wedding band is an alternative to a metal one for active people. And we launched that about a month and a half ago, and it's gone incredibly well.
Gotcha. And then looking forward to 2024, any other products on the roadmap that you're able to discuss or disclose?
Not really. I mean, we make a lot of different styles of the kind of iconic Lokai bracelet for different initiatives. But yeah, we right now as a brand are really focused on marketing and sales. Product is kind of where it needs to be. We just need to reach more people.
And reaching more people, that's through social media, through word of mouth. Just love to understand where consumers finding out about Lokai.
It's definitely a mix between working with partners, whether they're athletes, influencers, celebrities that can speak to their community in an authentic way. It's through performance marketing, which is Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and organic social media.
Got it. Because it's funny, I know I'm wearing a Texas hat, but I'm a proud IU grad. I was just in Austin, Texas. So I had to, of course, when in Rome, buy the hat. But I was going on the Lokai website and I'm looking at bracelets and I see Florida, I see Penn State, I see Michigan, no Indiana. So who do I need to talk to at Indiana, Steven, for there to be an Indiana branded Lokai bracelet?
That's funny. So we actually had over 115 colleges at one point. IU might have been one of them. And we cut that back to really the top 15 schools about a year ago. And that's just really the 80-20 rule. There were about 80% of our sales were from 20% of the schools. And so,
sure.
Yeah, inventory management's an important part of being successful. And so,
of course.
And by the way, we cut Cornell, which is my school.
I was going to say, yeah, I didn't see Cornell. Yeah.
So I got hit as well.
Well, you hit on something, for the brand management folks who are listening as well, SKU rationalization, what percentage of your sales are actually being attributed to that specific product, and is it worth, to your point, worth the time and effort to produce it if no one's buying it? Going back for a second, you mentioned influencers, you mentioned creators who are helping evangelize and talk about and drive awareness around the Lokai brand. Can you give us some semblance? I did see a picture of you and Cam Newton. Any other athletes that are wearing Lokai products? And love to understand, how do they exude, again, that ethos of being humble in the high and hopeful in the lows?
Yeah, our philosophy has always been organic is so much better. And so we do a lot of seeding. So we'll gift product to every locker room before the season. And yeah, if you watch Sunday football, you'll probably see a few Lokais on guys. And it's just, that's totally organic, just from seeding and gifting, and then word of mouth, right? They'll be wearing it in the locker room and guys will be like, where'd you get that? And then we'll get hit up on social media, say, hey, can we get a package of some product? And so most of it is very organic.
That's super interesting because, I imagine, now, in the social media age, and you mentioned, mental health is one of the, causes that Lokai donates, again, that 10% of net profits to, seeing, someone or seeing an athlete that you look up to or aspire to, perhaps have that sense of relatability. They're talking about, mental health issue, just using that as an example, and they're wearing a Lokai product, and I imagine that resonates really well to what you're saying about organic, to that consumer saying, okay, this athlete's going through this, they're wearing this Lokai bracelet to symbolize, that humble in the highs and hopeful in the lows, to maintain that balance. throughout their journey. So I think that's great, because you also touched upon product. You can put as much money, I imagine you would agree with this, you can spend as much money behind a so-so product, but that's not really going to move, or that's not really going to make the brand. What's going to make the brand is for you to have an exceptional product that no one else can perhaps make. And it's going to market and sell itself, because to what you're saying about that word of mouth, someone sees it, an athlete, and like, wait a minute, can we get one? I imagine you have some examples of just focusing on the product first before you start spending money on marketing.
Absolutely. I think I've seen a lot of companies go up, come down, be successful because of marketing. At the end of the day, I think product is king, always. And is the product something that people are organically wearing and talking about and telling others about? And does it improve your life? And you need all the other pieces to be successful. But if you don't have a great product, you won't be able to survive forever.
It's funny. I think on LinkedIn, I think one of the founders of Liquid Death was talking about, we're just water in a can, but we made it distinct. We made it cool. We also made it environmentally friendly. So yes, you can get the same water, perhaps cheaper in a plastic bottle or paper, but it doesn't have that cool factor, that cachet that you would get with a Liquid Death product, which I thought was incredibly interesting. Because again, their focus was just building on the brand to distinguish itself. Because again, it's just water in a can. So I think, yes, focusing on the product. In terms of those, do you have any specific consumer verbatims about, consumers were talking about, thanking you, being very effusive in their appreciation for Lokai? Again, it's all about that balance. We'd love to hear, what consumers are saying in real time about, the products that they're purchasing.
Sure. Yeah, there's probably 50 to 100 of our community members who have Lokai tattoos. Lokai is definitely a brand where people have gotten very emotional about it, and I've cried reading stories and what people have gone through, whether it's going through chemotherapy and cancer, or being gifted the Lokais by a friend who had passed away. All different stories about how Lokais help people through some of the toughest and darkest times of their life is just a simple reminder every day to keep hopeful. I think one of the things that's important to us as a brand is not overpromising. We never say we're going to physically balance you. It's always just about that daily reminder, and it means a lot to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. 50 to 100 people, and they're writing to you. They're saying, "Hey, Lokai team, this is my picture of my Lokai tattoo." Like.
Oh yeah, they're all over social media. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's and I imagine when you started this, in 2013, did you ever imagine that it would get to this point where these consumers are so not zealous, but they're so proud of being a Lokai consumer?
That's been incredibly humbling. Mm-hmm. About how much love we've got from our community.
Yeah, again, it was total coincidental that I mentioned Liquid Death, because there are some Liquid Death consumers who've gotten the Liquid Death logo or I think logo on their bodies for free, Liquid Death for life. And it's just amazing. Again, if you have a great product that means so much to a consumer, they're going to show it and they're going to talk about it. One of my favorite quotes, Steven, from Steve Jobs is, and I've posed this to other guests, is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. You mentioned, the inception or the idea of the company, when your grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then you spoke to your dad about you want to start a business, again, to help and to give back. What other dots, if you look back now over the past 10 years, can you point to that helped you get to where you are today?
I would say just taking it day by day and really living our message of staying humble and hopeful. We've had some incredible years. We've had some really tough years. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, and it's always important to find your balance, even in business. It's making sure, I think for me, not to let the emotions of my work life affect my personal life. Because if things are good one day, I'm going to be super happy. And if things are bad, then I'll be depressed and sad and upset. And having that affect my relationship with my wife and my kids is just not sustainable. And so I think living our own message and learning to find balance through the highs and the lows of business and separating that from personal would be a huge learning. And I don't know if that fully answers your question about connecting the dots, but something that's gotten me to still be running the company and excited about the company 13 years after coming up with the idea.
It definitely answers the question, because it's, you look back and you're like, early on, I need to compartmentalize my business life from my personal life, because you understand, being an entrepreneur, there are very high highs and very low lows, and you just want to maintain again the ethos of balance. And you mentioned or alluded to core values. And before you and I started the recording, I asked you a question about how many employees you have. You mentioned 10 full time, and you have about agencies that number in 20. Is it safe to say that those 30 or so people that work alongside you on a daily basis share that same mission, same core values that you hold so near and dear? And is that what you look for as you are looking to bring on new people to the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want people that live our brand and live our message. And one of the things that we've done and implemented as a company is Balance Fridays. So people kind of sign off on work midday on Friday to really give you that Friday afternoon to do catch up on errands, do things with your family, whatever you might need to do to get done. And so we definitely, as a company, try to live our own mission.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you talk about balance, to the consumer, you want to make sure you're living those values. Yeah, because it's funny. You go on LinkedIn, you go on social media. Again, you see these posts about having free coffee or having a ping pong table doesn't really build culture. Building culture is really understanding who that person is, outside and inside of the office. Understanding them as a human being. So it's great to hear that you really pride, of course, yourself on the mission to the consumer, but for the people who are working internally, making sure they evoke those same values and share those same values and mission. So I imagine that the term authentic is overused, but here I think it's incredibly relevant, because you want to have that level of authenticity to exude all parts of the business. Because consumers, again, you correct me if I'm wrong, consumers can pick up on inauthenticity very easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can, they're like, no, they say they're doing good. They say they're giving back, but are they really, once consumers start questioning the purpose or the mission of a particular brand, then I think then it's like a stall point for that business. In that realm, are there any like past business examples or brand examples that you've come across where a brand says they're doing all these great things, but in actuality, they're not?
No, I can't think of an example of that. But I would say for us, we've always prided transparency. So not only do we say we're giving back, but then we really try to show it. We really try to show it with content about kind of the researchers we work with and interviews with them, or the kids we've affected, or the number of wells we've built, or trees we've planted, and really, yeah, just be transparent across our giving.
You're donating, again, 10% of net profits. And once those proceeds are donated, just so I understand clearly, you are outwardly communicating to the Lokai consumer and the people who are following you, like, this is where that money has gone, and this is the impact that it's making on.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, like, for instance, like for Make-A-Wish, right? Some of those proceeds, for the net profits go to Make-A-Wish. There are specific stories that you're sharing, and are those just limited to social media and email, or do they make it to like mass media in terms of impact?
Mainly just email, social, and our website.
Gotcha. That's amazing, because it's funny. Like, I support Cycle for Survival, which is in partnership with Memorial Sloan Kettering. It raises money for rare cancer research. And what's amazing is that every year, when it raises, 20, 30, $40 million, they break down, for everyone who's contributed, where that money has gone, in terms of the actual research, the clinical trials, the impact that it's having on rare cancer patients. Which is amazing, because again, it goes back to that whole point of authenticity. In order to be authentic, you need to be transparent. If you say you're going to do something, consumers want to see, or the supporters want to see, that you're following through on your promise. Because if you're not, again, then it's then the consumer, whomever is supporting your cause, is being turned off. The other question with regards to purpose and mission, when you were starting Lokai at inception, was it okay? I want to give back, and then over time, it was I want to give a certain percentage of net profits. Like, I would love to understand the thought process of day one. Okay, I want to, of course, create a for-profit business. I want to give back. But then from giving back, like, how did you make that decision to say, okay, 10% of net profits are going to go to causes?
I definitely knew that giving back was a critical part of our brand and our business from day one, especially because of my grandfather's Alzheimer's diagnosis. And actually, from day one, we started with 10% of net profit. So I think we nailed it right on the head from day one, and we haven't changed since.
That is amazing that, like, on day one, because usually, brands, they want to give back, but it's more amorphous. It's like, okay, how do we do this? Maybe we'll pick a charity, and we'll put some names in a hat. We'll pick one out. We'll, again, arbitrarily select, a dollar amount, and we'll just donate it. I think from what you're saying, or from what I'm hearing, is that it was much more methodical, much more, understanding, that, again, day one, you want to give back, and 10% based on those calculations, or for the business. And then, of course, over time, selecting which causes those dollars go to, which is tremendous. And then in terms of consumers or the people who are listening to us who want to learn more about Lokai, where can they go to find out more? I know I'm, of course, going to list the website, but what other places can consumers or the people who are listening find you?
Yeah, I'd say the best places are our website at lokai.com, as well as our social media, which is at Lokai.
Gotcha. And that's you guys are active on, I know, on Instagram. Anywhere else that you're active on?
We're on all the major social platforms.
Gotcha. And then for the people who want to, who may have questions for you, Steven, where can they contact you, or how can they contact you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is just at Steven Izen on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. I'll respond.
Excellent. I mentioned the aspiring founder and entrepreneur. For the consumer who's, in the market for, a bracelet, what would you want to get across to them? It is distinct in terms, again, it's all around balance of the highs and the lows. What would you want to get across to them on why they should choose a Lokai bracelet versus something else?
Yeah, I think it's Lokai is about what it stands for, not the bracelet itself. So I think anyone who's looking to be more balanced in their life, make a change, and needs a daily reminder, Lokai is an amazing version of that for them.
Having that sense of introspection and reflection, because I imagine people do this with their Apple Watch, like, oh, did I get a text message? I imagine that's like an instinct when you're wearing a Lokai bracelet. Like, again, if you're going through high or low, you're looking at this as just like as a reminder to anchor you. And when it comes to anchor, of course, the Lokai bracelet's a great anchor, is a great reminder. Are there any other anchors that keep you grounded, Steven, as you continue to build this business?
Absolutely. My family, my wife, my two sons. I think once you have kids, your perspective on life changes a lot. And the kids really do that for me.
Gotcha. And how old are you? You said two sons?
Yeah, I have a 4.5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's you got your hands full. That's that's great. No, I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. And my 3-year-old son, I imagine you can attest to this, likes to use his body as a torpedo. Any chance he can get, jumping off of things. But it's great. Again, it's amazing how kids can help refine and reshape your perspective. I imagine, before kids, you had this very altruistic outlook on life, on how can I be selfless? How can I be a servant leader? And I think, having kids, of course, helps that. Because again, they're seeing what you're doing, and you're setting an example for them. And you want to make sure that the example you set for them is, of course, compelling, but it's the example you want to set.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Steven, it's been great speaking with you this afternoon. Any parting wisdom for any of the listeners with regards to your experience, building Lokai to where it's now?
Yeah, I think you just have to have a long-term vision of what you're going to build and really be passionate about it. I think it takes a long time, and it's definitely not the easiest way to make money being an entrepreneur. And so I think you have to love what you do to truly be successful.
You got to love what you do. You got to be passionate about what it is that you're doing. Again, it's not a job. It's a career. It's you start one business, you exit that business. It's not like it's not a switch that you turn on and turn off. It sounds like being an entrepreneur, which is great. Again, you're constantly thinking about ideas on how to, of course, build this existing business to even greater heights. Steven, again, great having you on the show. Really appreciate your perspective on Lokai, on business, on life. I think the listeners are going to take away a lot of actionable insights, especially those who are thinking about starting a business, and the ones who are building a business, can definitely take away some real good nuggets from this conversation. I'm going to include the Lokai website, where to find Lokai on social media, as well as Steven's Instagram handle. So if you have any questions, please, as Steven said, reach out to him via direct message.
Eric, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Worthy for 30 podcast. Stay tuned for more insights from impactful business leaders. Don't miss out. Follow us on all podcast platforms to catch every conversation.